Hi, I'm Sarah Morin. I'm the Youth Experience Manager here at Conner Prairie. Today, I'm going to go over our overall interaction policy for when we interact with youth. This training is suitable for all Conner Prairie staff members and adult volunteers. Please be aware that there may be more specific instructions when working with young people in your specific departments and roles. So Conner Prairie has developed a nice one-page policy that is a quick summary of best practices when working with young people. And this was something that was developed back in 2019 with discussions between several different staff members on what is just good best practice for working with young people today. You will recognize in a lot of these policies maybe ideas that you've heard from other youth serving organizations. For the purpose of this training, whenever I say youth, I could mean a youth volunteer, a guest, a camper, an HSA kid, any participant, any human being here at Conner Prairie who is known or suspected to be under the age of 18. Please note, we do have employees who are under the age of 18. They're considered under a special group. They are protected by child labor laws. And so for specific questions about them, then consult the rest of HR. So as a Conner Prairie employee or a Conner Prairie adult volunteer, you are expected to keep interactions with youth publicly observable or at least interruptible. Whenever possible, groups of three are ideal. When you have a group of three, then it prevents one-on-one contact. So the idea behind this rule is that we know from research that 90% of youth abuse takes place in an isolated one-on-one situation. So if we as Conner Prairie can say, you know what, I'm not even going to guess the intentions of people because sometimes we cannot know intentions. I'm just going to say that at Conner Prairie, we are never isolated in a one-on-one situation with a youth. We're going to prevent 90% of potential youth abuse situations. So what you are striving for is to be a group of three. So that could be two youth, one adult. That could be two adults, one youth, or make it observable. So let's say that you are working and it's an open day and there are guests that are wandering by all the time. That makes it observable to others. That makes it interruptible as well. One reason that we have pics that wander the grounds during special programs. That's also to just keep our eyes on all safety things, be it the safety of the grounds or the safety of the people. Something that you can do if working with a young person is triangulate the space. So maybe you could be seen from this direction, an open door, for example, but also keep your eye on the youth. If you're working in a post on the grounds, maybe position yourself so that that open door to the cabin allows guests and people walking by to see you all the time. You may, if we've slowed down our visitation and you're working a post on the grounds, you may choose to go ahead and maybe go to the back porch where you can be seen because that's the road going by, say, the Conner house, or have the youth where you can be seen. If you're ever not able to meet at least one of those three conditions, so observable, interruptible, group of three, then you should immediately be talking to the youth pick or an appropriate supervisor to get back up where we can meet those conditions. And please, if you do work with our youth volunteers, feel free to radio the youth pick so that we can help by either moving in another adult, moving in another kid to make those situations safer. Please remain visible to others. If you need to converse one-on-one with a youth, do so in plain view of others. So for example, sometimes we know when working with kids, particularly if they're our volunteers, that we might want to say something specifically to them that's a coaching moment, but we don't want them to be embarrassed. So again, thinking through, maybe I'm going 25 feet away where I can be seen by others, but not heard by others for that little coaching moment. If you're working alone in a non-public space and a youth enters alone, you should immediately leave the space, find a third person to form a group of three, or immediately dismiss the youth from the space. So mainly, we don't want to have youth on the far, far parts of the grounds that are away from where they can be seen. Um, we can also be considering things like break spaces. Um, the porterhouse, for example, we spent a couple years using the bottom of that as a break space. The Prairie Town Necessary is another place where people take breaks. The staff lounge that we now have, the staff break room in our new building. All of those are places where if youth are in there and you find yourself one-on-one and there's nobody floating through the hallway, you're the only one with this kid, it is perfectly fine to say to that kid, do you need anything? Okay, well, if you don't, then I'm going to have to ask you to go to your break space because I'm not allowed to be one-on-one with you. And we're very open with our youth volunteers about such policies. I think it's the break room situation which is most likely to arise for this particular situation. You could, however, wind up one-on-one with a young guest if that guest is lost. For that, you would need to first off don't hop, in an aggressive way on the fact that they're alone and where's your adult because that can be quite alarming and then kind of the child's turned off from learning and having fun for the day. But you can just take a moment, observe, and see if there's some, panting adult with a stroller behind them trying to keep up with the young legs. If you discover after that, yeah, there's definitely not an adult with this kid. Or maybe it's the signal as the kid's crying. And so that's like, oh, this is a kid who needs help here, but they've lost their adult. Absolutely. Approach that child. Here at Conner Prairie, our guests do need to be at least 16 before they're allowed to come alone. And so I would start the conversation casually, like, hey, I'm so glad to hear you having fun today. Hey, who'd you bring with you today? And if you discover that they are indeed under 16 and they are alone, then, well, here at Conner Prairie, we do want you to be safe. It is our policy that you do be with an adult at your age. I can help reconnect you. And from there, then you or the nearest person with you with the radio will then radio to the 405 who will assist in a reunification. Please respect personal space, safety, and privacy. Please do not touch youth. If physical contact is necessary to help them do an activity, obtain permission from their adult first. If you are comfortable allowing a youth to hug you, they should initiate the hug and you should keep it brief. So a lot of schools have a no touch policy. We have, I would call it a limited touch policy. We do allow very brief youth-initiated hugs. And I would say for those situations, it needs to be maybe a quick side hug, something quick and let go. It is true that with some of the kids that you're working with regularly, they may look up to you and admire you. They may want to hug you. That said, you have body boundaries too. And so if you are not into hugging, that is not your thing that day with that kid, you absolutely have the right not to hug. So you can easily deflect that. You could offer a high five instead. If you can make elbow bumps and fist bumps look cool, by all means. Some other form of connection that is not physical is fine. It's also okay to simply say, it's great to see you too, but you know what? Really into hugging today. The sooner that young people learn body boundaries, the better off they're really going to be in life. It is more likely that maybe a camper or maybe a youth volunteer that you've been working with for several days in a row who really has formed that bond with you, it's more likely that they're going to be someone who hugs you than a young guest. But sometimes it does happen that a young guest will hug you. What I recommend you do in that situation is just disengage from the physical as soon as you can and engage in maybe an activity. So they glomped onto your leg. Oh, it's nice to see you too. Here. And you start walking, they will fall off. And you say, let's go do this activity over here. Have you seen it? And then get them engaged in that other thing. We do understand that young children are still learning how to move in the world socially. And so sometimes, they will come up and hug somebody that they have met for 5 minutes. No manager is going to be mad at a staff member or adult volunteer for those, kid contact things as long as you don't allow that situation to go on and on. You do disengage and re-engage. You can also always look at their caregiver, their parent, whatever adult they have with them, and kind of give them that deer in the headlights look and see if they can help. Because most of these people want their young ones to develop those good body boundaries too. Along with the touching, in general, we're not going to touch our guests when interpreting, but there may come a time when you do need to in order to do the activity right. For example, I know that in Prairie Town, at Headless Horseman, at camp, there will be times that in order to do that game, maybe you need to tag each other on the back. Maybe you need to help push them down the tubing hill. For those situations, I would say just be very mindful of, is this touch necessary to do the activity? Am I making sure I'm not touching anywhere close to a private part, anything that could be misconstrued? And is it in the open? I would get consent from the adult in the situation, whatever adult the kid brought, and the kid themselves. So let's say that they're dipping candles and you're concerned. One way to address it would be to demonstrate it, maybe have their adult assist them. Another way to handle the situation would be look at the guardian and say, may I assist this child? If you get a yes, look at the kid. May I assist you? And if that's all in the open, then touching just where you need to, like the hands, for that Conner Prairie purpose is okay. Ensure activities are safe and age appropriate. So, for example, using power tools, stoking fires, and operating equipment. We have already, for our festivals and for what is open on the daily grounds, we have already selected activities that we know will be okay to engage with. And so for things that are specific by post or by program, those should be things that those leaders can go into specifics of. It's okay if they touch this. This one maybe we're not handling. This activity is for just age such and such up or just this height such and such. That would be a place to check in for those very specific things. If they are a youth volunteer and it's one of the more dangerous activities or just complex activities such as spinning, knitting, more dangerous ones might include using the axe. For something like that, they have proficiencies just like the adults. Staff members in those areas go through a checklist and get the skills to achieve that proficiency. Youth have those as well. And you can always, if you have a concern, is this activity appropriate for this age group? I would err on the side of caution. Or with a guest, you might even ask their adult with them, is this something that your young one could handle? Keep conversations with and around youth G-rated. Avoid conversing with youth about sensitive topics, such as relationships, violence and suicide, drugs and alcohol, etc. If these topics come up, they must be related to Conner Prairie and age appropriate. Do not put heavy adult concerns on youth, for example, discussing the details of your own medical or financial troubles. And I will also add, if the situations come up, it could be for a medical emergency. So I'm going to expand upon this because I think this is where we have the most confusion. It isn't every relationship that's off limits or every instance of violence and suicides where the relationship line is. Anything that is really a behind the scene detail about your own romantic situation. That is something that we don't need to know the kids, they don't need to know ours unless the kid is seeking help. So, for example, mentioning my partner and I went to the movies last night. The fact that you have a partner, that's fine. But I would not go into details about, what you two do behind closed doors, anything that is sexual in nature, that is no go. Again, unless that kid comes to you seeking help, then you listen and get them help, and we'll get to that in a moment. If a kid needs to vent for a second, like, oh, I'm late today because my brother threw Cheerios on my head and there's milk everywhere, and they vent for a moment or two, put it behind them, you go on with your day. That kind of relationship, absolutely fine to discuss. Same thing with violence and suicide. We know, for example, that one of our important things that Conner Prairie considers is there are some heavy truths of history. Sometimes it is appropriate to mention the Ku Klux Klan and PLPG, or mention the Alamo and Prairie Town. If these topics come up, again, you would discuss these things differently with an upper elementary kid than you would a high schooler. So gearing toward their age, giving them the option to opt out, and it absolutely has to be Conner Prairie related. With drugs and alcohol, same rules apply. We will not talk to the youth about any drugs or alcohol that we use on a personal level, even if it's legal. Same thing, we don't need to know theirs unless it's related to that emergency situation. My inhaler is over there. Can you grab that for me? I don't think I can get there. And by the way, can you let them know that I need the 900? Something like that would be fine to say. Also, if it pertains to something in history, pick your audience. But for example, at the Golden Eagle Inn, we have a sign on the wall that says wine is 6.25 cents. That would be appropriate to talk to a guest about. Uh, For example, if they are, in that teenage range, we know that the Indiana laws for alcohol were different then. That could be of interest to them, but pick your audience for who that's appropriate for. We would also give a reminder that we're not, even if we may form a bond with youth, we should not use them as our therapists. So we don't want to vent to them about something that's really an adult concern, like our medical situation in detail, or financial worries, or anything that really adultifies them. Lastly, understand your role as a mandated reporter. Indiana is what we call a mandated reporting state, and that means by law, any adult, no matter what your job title is, any adult in the state of Indiana, if you have disclosure or reasonable suspicion that a youth is being abused or neglected, then you must by law make a report to either the police or CPS, that is Child Protective Services. I will include the contact number and an associated handout. If it happens here at Conner Prairie or involves Conner Prairie in any way, please be sure to include HR in those discussions and make a report. If it includes a youth volunteer in any way, please be sure that the youth pick knows. If for some reason you can't get a hold of those people right away, then make the report and then immediately follow up with what you did so that we know. We need to keep a record, but we also don't want to delay help getting to a youth. We don't want to leave them in harm's way for longer than they absolutely have to be. I, by the way, am happy to sit through a phone call with anyone. I can't make a report on your behalf, but I can absolutely, talk you through what it might be like and sit through it with you. If you have any questions concerning this policy, I am always available. You can reach me at Morin, Morin, at connerprairie.org. There will be some follow-up videos for people who work in specific departments with young people. But overall, we hope that you have young people in a special place in your heart here at Conner Prairie as we help them grow, we help them play, we help them explore, and we also keep them safe. Thank you.